Today on Adversity to Strength, I'm joined by Amy McKiernan for a deeply honest and courageous conversation about trauma, survival, healing, and reclaiming your voice after sexual assault. Amy shares her experiences of sexual abuse and rape and the long and deeply personal journey of learning not just how to survive trauma, but how to begin healing from it in a meaningful and empowering way. After spending 10 years writing her book, Amy opens up about the vulnerability involved in telling her story publicly and why giving survivors a voice matters so much. In this episode, we discuss trauma, shame, silence, healing, the importance of support systems, and the reality of rebuilding your life after devastating experiences. We also explore how sharing difficult stories can help others feel less alone and create space for deeper understanding, compassion, and recovery. This is a powerful conversation about resilience, truth, vulnerability, and finding strength after trauma. Amy, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. It's really good to be here.
Your absolute pleasure. Take us back to the beginning. Where did your journey start for yourself?
I a very loved child. I had a great support system. I'm the youngest of three kids. Grew up with a big family. Lived next door to my grandparents. Sunday dinner at Graham's for
Yeah.
spaghetti and meatballs every week. That kind of family. And so it was a great childhood. And I was one of those kids who was very creative. I loved performing and singing and dancing and creating things and playing and just, love to kind of have the stage at home and things. And so things were going well. And, things started taking a turn for me. When I was about 12 or 13, I was in seventh grade and I had an experience with a teacher. And I won't go into too much detail about my experiences, but I had an experience with a teacher where he kept touching me at school, and that was my first experience. One with an adult that I was supposed to trust, and
Yeah.
two, really with the confusion of I'm supposed to be in a safe space at school. This thing
Yeah.
is happening. Is it my fault? Am I misreading it? Really, that self doubt. And I did end up telling my parents about that, and the teacher was fired, and I just kind of pushed it down and moved on.
Yeah.
And then came high school, and I was a freshman in high school. I was 15, and that's when I experienced my first rape. And it was by a friend. There was alcohol involved. I was not where I was supposed to be. I had lied to my parents about where I was. And this is before cell phones and
Yeah.
GPS trackers and all of those things. So just, keep that part in mind. And that was my first rape. That's how I lost my virginity. And that experience, it just broke me.
Yeah.
That little girl that I explained in the beginning of just free and loving the spotlight and loving to dance and perform, like that was gone. That light was gone. And my path just took this turn of emptiness and brokenness and self-pity and blame. I felt like such a burden to my family. They ended up finding out. I didn't tell them, but they ended up finding out. The whole school ended up finding out. And it just became my identity. I
That's what you were.
became, yeah, I was the girl who was raped. That's how people would refer to me. I went around the school. He got arrested. He skipped town. And that was it. That was the end of the case. Like I've heard nothing since then. And so it just started this journey of who am I? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm the girl who was raped. And even people who didn't go to my school heard about what happened. I remember there was like a moment I was out of town with a friend at a party, and he introduced me to somebody, and she was like, "Oh, I've heard of you. You're the girl who was raped." And it was like this, just, it was everywhere. I couldn't get away from it, and this is before social media. This is before, this was a different time. And yet it was still this like widespread situation. And that's when I really started drinking and experimenting with drugs and just trying to
Yeah.
numb everything. I like completely shut down toward my family. I wouldn't accept the help that they wanted to give. They got me into therapy. I went, but I was just kind of there. And I experienced another rape at 16 by a different friend. Again, I was drinking.
And this is a friend that would have known what you've already been through.
Yeah, likely. This friend was at the same school, and so, it was, yeah, they probably did know. And, so it just, like, reiterated this narrative of, like, who I was for the world, like, just, "This is who I am. This is my lot in life. This is what happens to me." And again, I was drinking, and so there's that. I think that I'm not sure exactly what your experiences are, but when alcohol's involved, I find that people who experience these things, they blame themselves so much because, well, what do you expect when you drink that much? Or what do you expect? You're doing this. It's like you have
Yeah.
this like narrative of like, well, if I had only not been doing that thing, then this wouldn't have happened. And so that was my second experience with rape. And then my path just got even harder. It was just this emptiness, this desperation to fill the void with things that I should not be
Yeah.
filling it with. And I had even other experiences happen after that. And it just, again, it was this, almost like self proclaiming prophecy, right? Like this,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
well, what do you expect? And I had this experience with a boyfriend's uncle that happened, and I didn't tell my parents, and I didn't tell anyone actually about that experience. I didn't tell anyone until I wrote this book because it was like
Did you
the
think at some
shame.
point, yeah, but
Yeah.
at that point with what you went through is just horrendous. And at the age that you were, at that point, did you think this has got to be my fault somehow?
100%. I was
Yeah.
like,
Which
this
is
is
crazy
clearly
when you
my
think about it.
right. Looking back now, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I should have told my parents." I
Yeah.
have 2 kids of my own now, and I'm like, things would have drastically been different if I had. But yes, I completely blamed myself. And that last experience, I was 16. This was all happened within like a year and a half of each other. And I was 16, and this uncle, he had to be mid 40s. I was a kid still, and just thought it was my fault. I just, like, was so ashamed of myself for letting this person give me a ride home, and, like, clearly in my brain, I was like, "This is clearly me problem. Like, I clearly did this somehow. How could I ever tell?"
Yeah.
And that man, even after I got out of that relationship and cut ties with those people, he proceeded to call me for a year afterward, and just he would call me, he would masturbate over the phone, and I would just ask him to stop calling me, and I would hang up. And that's all I did. I never told anyone. I just, "Please stop calling," and, like, hung up and, like, hid it because, like, how could I tell anyone this like, they would just look down on me, and that was the mentality that I had, and so even and for anyone who can relate to that, you know, the journey is so long to
Yeah.
go from there to clarity. And
Yeah.
even when you make like small steps, which I did, I ended up taking like these small steps toward healing. And like first was like not doing as many drugs and then drinking less and then,
Yeah.
getting some clarity and things. And even with all of that, even me thinking like, okay, look at me, I'm healthier now, like I'm healed, it's like you don't really realize until you realize how deep it all
Yeah.
runs
Yeah.
and all of those things. And so, fast forward, and I'm sure we'll go more into that, but I became a mom at 20. I was in a really toxic relationship because relationships just I accepted the
Yeah.
worst because that's all I was worth,
If you're
and
not feeling good about yourself, you're always
oh,
you're programmed to make
of course.
those
Yes.
choices there. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's normal.
Yeah.
Happened
Yeah,
then.
exactly. Exactly. So I got pregnant at 20, and it was after I had my son it's like something clicked in my brain of I have more work to do here. Like I'm not healed like I thought I was. I have to love myself. I want to be this mom for this little boy.
Yeah.
I want him to grow up seeing a healthy relationship. And I can't give that to him unless I accept it for myself,
Yeah.
right? I can't love him the way I need to unless I really love myself.
And that's the hardest
And
part.
yes, it's so easy to love somebody else and not yourself, but I think with any relationship, whether it's parent to child or spouse to spouse or friendship, it's like you can't give somebody what they deserve unless you're giving yourself what you deserve too. Not fully, not truly. And
Yeah.
so it was like this realization of like, I need to start accepting this truth that I've been denying for so long, that my past is, those things were not my fault. And I'm deserving of love, and I'm deserving of like really owning my power again, and
What
like
got you to that
owning,
point?
I mean, I think there's like a few things, right? Like I think that it's a mixture of having a strong support system, which I
It's so
did.
important. So
uh,
it's essential.
It's, you cannot do this without it. And I'll preface that with the fact that it doesn't have to look like mine. Like I know that I said I have this really supportive family, and I do. And I understand that that's not the way it is for everyone.
No.
But with that, I do believe that there is a support system out there for everyone. It just might look different than mine. And it's
Yeah.
so crucial to find it and lean on it because you need to and you deserve to. And so it was like a mixture of finally allowing my support system to support me, because I didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And I moved back in with my parents after I had my son. And also going to therapy, but actually participating in therapy,
How did you find
right?
that? Because that takes a lot.
Oh, yeah. It was, I mean, it took time to find the right therapist. And I think that any good mental health professional will tell you that not every therapist is for every patient, right? Like you really have to find the right fit.
The first thing I say to a new client that comes to me is you've got to have the right vibe. You've got to have that
Mhm,
right connection, like a first date. Is can this
mhm.
person do something for me? Because you have the greatest therapist in the world. If you don't have that connection with them,
Yeah.
you're not going to open up. You're not going to feel secure. You're not going to build the trust. That's the first thing I say, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah.
You're
Um,
absolutely right.
and a lot of times you don't even need the greatest therapist in the world. You just need somebody that can listen and is doing the right therapy
Mhm.
there. Because for yourself, a lot of the things you'd be doing would have been talking a lot
Yeah.
about things that have been suppressed for so long, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And so that took some time, is to find that right therapist. And then also you have to, you don't, therapy isn't this like magical thing,
No,
right? Like you don't go and it's like, poof, you're fixed. You sat in therapy. Yay. It's
yeah,
like you have to be open to it. You have to do the work, the
and
inner work.
consistent. Yes, you do.
Yes, it's a commitment. It's a commitment.
Yeah,
So I think, it was a combination of leaning on my support system, being open to actually the inner work and the therapy. And it was that self-reflection piece, and it was the choice. It's like a switch in your brain when you make the choice to do the work, or you make the choice to accept the truth of this was not my fault. I deserve better. And actually believing that. You can say it to yourself, you can hear people say it all you want, but unless you are choosing to accept it and choosing to, like, I'm going to make this choice right now toward my healing. It might be the smallest little thing. It might be setting a boundary. It might be
yeah,
not hanging out with this group of people today. It might be going to therapy. It might be writing it down or making a phone call, whatever it is, and doing that every day, right? And those
yeah.
choices become bigger choices. And sometimes they stay small, and that's okay because it all just chips away at a new path for you. And
Becomes the
that's
new
what I
you
find
over
it
time.
is. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so that's what it was. It was like the accepting the help, leaning on who I needed to lean on, and making those choices for myself, and like actually deciding for myself that like I want this for me. I'm going to work on this for me. Ooh, I see something coming up for me. Where is that connected? Right? Like, well, how is that? This is tied to something inside. And then like working
yeah,
through it with my therapist,
yeah,
and figuring out those connections, and then being like, okay, I now I understand, and now I'm going to work on that. Now I'm going to be aware of it and work on it. And so, it's a lot of those little things all in one that kind of flip that switch for you, and help you truly make progress and decide to make progress. And so, it was getting out of that relationship with my son's father,
yeah,
choosing to move back home and accepting the help,
yeah,
leaning on my parents, which I needed to do. And then I was able to focus on finishing school, focus on working, focus on me and my son. And it was like a game changer for me. That's when I found myself again. I like that light came back, and I was this became the person I am today, this person who is confident and this person who doesn't accept, mistreatment for myself or for others. And I advocate and I'm strong and I feel I live this like really fulfilling life and I chose that for myself and I deserve that. I had to
Yeah.
decide to deserve that. And now, I'm in this successful marriage. I've got two kids, and I'm this leader at work and I work with people and I work through communication breakdowns and like solution based conversations and like overcoming the challenges that the day brings. And I wrote my book and I'm also a speaker and a presenter for Take Back the Night and Campus Outreach Services, where I advocate and I bring awareness and education and I talk about my story to schools and organizations. And it's just, I make a difference. And it's
Yeah.
the most empowering thing. And yeah, and so this book, More Than a Survivor, it took me a long time to decide to write it and then actually write it and then
As
finish it.
always, yeah,
Yeah.
as always. What made you decide to write the book? Because I'm writing my book at the moment. I've been so many people ask me, Lee, you need to write your story. You need to write your story. And obviously, so many guests I speak to decided to write a book for different reasons. Some people started off with just therapy, just journaling, and they got so much down. Well, I've almost got a book here. Some people wanted to tell their story, make a difference there. What was your story when it comes to writing your book?
Yeah, mine was all about helping other people.
Yeah.
I have this. So back when I was 15, my dad brought me to see this woman speak. Her name was Katie, and she was speaking at a school that I didn't go to, but he like contacted her. She said I could come, and she was speaking about her experience with rape. And it was it like hit me so hard, seeing her speak and seeing her strength and her healing. It was so inspirational. Now, at the time, I was like, that's her. This is me. I could
Yeah.
never be who she is. But it like planted this seed. I think I thought about it. I still think about it. Like it's in my book. I write about seeing her. Like it was so impactful. And so fast forward, now I'm in my 20s and my dad has a radio program. Now this is before podcast. So he's 2014 and he's got his radio program and he
Yeah.
asks me to come on it to talk about one of my experiences. And so we did an episode called What Do You Do When Life Gets Broken? And it was live. And we talked about my first rape and how we navigated that as a family. And this woman called in from the Philippines, and she was listening live from the Philippines, and she was so moved and touched and thanked me for my courage. And she shared a little bit about her story, and I just wanted to hug her through the microphone. And it was so, I just like, that was a moment for me of being like, I want to help others feel seen. I want others to feel less alone. And that's when I was like, I'm going to write a book. Now that was 2014. And so it still took years of me like thinking about it, writing some stuff down, not really like committing until like 2019. That's when I really started getting it all on paper. And it still like was 6 years of me writing it and then thinking I was done writing it and then realizing like, ooh, like I really held back here. Like I didn't even talk about this. And so it was like a whole other therapeutic experience that I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting, that I didn't even know I needed to like really be vulnerable, like get it all down. And I didn't have like a vision. I wasn't like, it's gonna be about the 8 keys. It was just more like I'm gonna write my story. And while writing it, the keys, I was able to name the keys that I've been using to actually heal and take my life back. And then it transformed into this like, it's not just a book that you read about my story. It's a book that you connect to your own.
Yeah.
It There's like this reflective journal that you pause and you reflect on where are you right now? What does this look like for you? And you get to like journal your own experiences and thoughts and just where you're at throughout the whole book. And it just makes it this like big connecting. piece for others to find healing in. And I just think it's so amazing. And so just to circle back to that speaker I saw,
Yeah.
I wrote the book and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to go on podcasts and just like talk about it and like connect with people. And it's been so great. And so I go on the second podcast I ever did. It's called Dear Katie. And I go on it and I discover that the woman who's doing the podcast is the same Katie that I saw speak when I was 15, which I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know who she was. I just knew her first name and her face. And so I get to reconnect with this woman and I come to find out that she's actually like this huge advocate. Her name's Katie Kistner. She's like this huge face of advocacy. She created Take Back the Night and Campus Outreach Services. She was on the cover of Time magazine back in the early 90s because of her experiences. Like she's just like done so much for advocacy for people who have experienced sexual assault. And then she hired me on to be a speaker and presenter and now I get to go on stage just like she was. And I get to talk to people and touch other people's lives in that way too. And
How
so
do
it's been
Yeah, that's an amazing transformation, and right place, right time, stroke of luck opens many doors. Make the most of it. How did you feel walking out on stage the first time to tell your story? Because no matter how interesting or what the message is, you're always going to doubt, is anyone even going to care about my story?
yeah. Oh my gosh. There's nothing like it. I mean, to be able to be in a room and connect with the people in front of you, and you can see it in their faces. It's like when you're
Yeah,
talking to a group of people, you can see who has been
yeah,
through it. Like you can
yeah.
see it on their faces and the experience of giving someone else hope or making someone just feel a little less alone, it is the most fulfilling experience. And so, yeah, I was really nervous at first, but the minute I started talking and looking at those faces looking back at me, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I feel like there's so much power to giving voice to things,
I think so.
right?
Bearing in mind you
Yeah.
come from what you've been through is one where people want you to be silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to give a
Yeah.
voice to that, you're giving a voice to a lot of other people because they
Absolutely.
might have been through the same or similar. Even if they haven't, there's a good chance a lot of people are going to relate to your story, and to hear somebody saying a story they can relate to is empowering for a lot of people. Which I'd imagine you've had a lot of people come up and speak to you about.
Yes, definitely. Oh, it's like every time I bring this up, even just like letting my work community know, like, oh, I wrote this book and if you're interested or if you know someone who needs it. And then it's like everyone who comes out of the woodwork being like, I have that same type of
Yeah,
experience. And
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, you're a voice for so many. It's just like you just don't know. It's like you know how common it is, but it's like not until it hits you in the face that like, wow, this is everywhere. And when you're going through it, even though you know it's so common, you still feel completely alone. And
yeah,
it's like
yeah. It's
isolating.
isolating
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
going through like what you've been through, obviously starting off with like child sexual abuse there, it's so isolating, it's so lonely. You got that emptiness there. You don't
Yeah.
feel that you can tell anyone. You feel like you're the
Mhm.
only person in the world that it's happened to, even though you know that it happened to lots of people there as well. And it's just something that is very difficult to talk about because it takes a lot, especially if you're really young, to actually speak out. So I think when you spoke out the first time was amazing on its own. But also, I don't know if you found this at all or not, but when you try and tell people, a lot of people don't want to hear it. They switch
Mm.
off. Yeah. Have you ever
Yeah.
had any experience like that where people just didn't want to hear what you were trying to tell them?
Yeah, so I had the experience of people taking sides and not believing me. So, like with my first rape when I was 15, I remember, it finally came out. My parents found out, not from me, but because it went around the school. And
Yeah.
somebody from the school called my brother, and my brother told my parents. And talking to the detective that evening he was so stern. And because there was alcohol involved and I didn't remember everything,
Yeah.
I remember distinctly he was like, well, either you remember or you don't.
No, you don't,
And
because thought your
it,
mind could be blanked out through trauma
right.
or
And so
blood
I just,
alcohol.
yeah. And it made me like, okay, clearly he thinks I'm lying. Or
Yeah.
like maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And it just made me feel so guilty. And then with it going around the school, it was like, who believed me and who believed him? And then I was either being called a whore or random strangers were hugging me. And it was just both didn't feel great.
Yeah.
Both were like, I just don't want to, I just want to be invisible. And even the adults at the school took sides. And that was like so confusing.
It is frustrating, especially when you're a victim of
Yeah.
something like that. And as a therapist, obviously, I do a lot of studying on psychology and from experiences as well. When it comes to anything like that, people take sides and they often take the side of which one's the easiest one to go with, even if the evidence is against that person, because people just don't want to face it or deal with it. They just want
Yeah.
it's easier to bury their head.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I remember distinctly being in the hallway and one of the security guards said to me, you're not the victim here. He is. And I was like, because his story was that I was lying, like we had sex and I was lying about it. And so, and it just felt so, and then you'd have like the teachers who clearly like cared, and then the teachers who like would hug him and be like, it's going to be okay. And then like if they saw me, they would like glare at me. Because they just assumed I was this troublemaker who was lying and trying to not
What
own up for my actions or something.
why do you think there was like such a strong opinion against you? Where do you think that comes from? Because
I
it could
mean,
be
I think,
like gossip or preconceived opinion of you that people that don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
well, he was older than me. So I was a freshman and he was either a junior or senior. And so he had already been established at the school. I think that everyone already knew him, right? They liked him. He was a likable guy. And so his story was like, she's lying. We had sex and she's lying about this. And so, people felt bad for him. They assumed he was telling them the truth and they felt bad for him. But even so, because of the age difference, it was statutory rape. So he got arrested for that part anyway. And so
So,
that part is jarring to me.
the thing it's irrelevant all of that because what he's done is still illegal anyway. That people
Yeah,
seem to miss this.
right. They didn't like care about that part.
Just let that one go. Let's be
Right.
selective.
Yes. Yes. So it was so it was awful. I mean, it's like I couldn't escape it. Everyone knew who took my side and who didn't. And then he ended up leaving, the area. Rumors
Yeah.
had it he went to go stay with family outside of the country or something and never to be heard from again. And that was it. Like case closed. And then
Whereas
there I
if he's
was.
innocent, surely he would want to clear his name.
Right. Right. So, so it was such a sad, dark time,
Yeah.
and one that my parents didn't know if I was going to make it out of high school alive. It was one thing after another. And I was just on this road of destruction. And then I started lying even more and manipulating them because I was doing all the drugs and always drinking and always going where I wasn't supposed to be and, like, they were trying so hard to keep me safe and to
Yeah.
support me, but it's like I was so closed off to that,
Yeah.
uh, and until I wasn't, and that's and
When you had like the destructive times, did you feel that you were just like just in so much mental pain, or was it like numbness, or what was going through your mind at those times?
I think that there was a lot of numbness. I think that it's, like, interesting because there were times where I would be, like, consciously identifying as broken, damaged goods, like, total, like, in my trauma, and there were
Yeah.
times where I would be like, "I'm fine, I'm just having fun." Right? And so, like, it, like, transforms to this part where it's like, I'm not even relating it to my trauma.
Yeah.
I'm just living my life and I
Yeah.
party. So what? There's no harm in that. And so, like, I think I'm okay because I'm not even giving myself a second to think clearly, not really realizing that this is just me trying to numb that pain that I don't want to creep back up. And so it's like I was started living life as if like not even thinking about it anymore,
Yeah.
just partying and having a great time so that I couldn't remember, and there's a lot of times I'd wake up and not know what happened the night before, and so and that's something that is, like, still like, "Huh." I don't even know some of the things that could have even happened,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how bad it was. So, yeah.
What made that time stop for you? What was the moment you thought, "I can't do this anymore"?
Yeah, so there was I talk about in my book like resets, and sometimes they're forced and sometimes they're by choice.
Yeah.
And I had like a forced reset at one point as a teen, and it didn't solve all the problems by any means, but it did help me slow down a little bit. And it was, I got, again, I was lying, manipulating my parents so much, and I got in trouble. I got caught like being somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. I was drinking again. It was not a good situation, and my parents were like they were at their wits' end. They were
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to keep this girl safe. We don't know what to do." So they came in to a therapy session with me and sat down with my therapist and me. And my dad, who's pretty brilliant, he already had it all figured out in his head before the conversation started. Basically, what he did was he's like, "All right, there's 6 weeks left of school until the summer, and she lied a whole bunch of times." And he broke down all my lies and he made 6. There was one that he kinda made 2, but there were 6 lies, 6 weeks left of school. So he grounded me 1 week for each lie, and I was on, like, lockdown, like, school, home, no phone, no friends,
Right,
nothing. And it
right.
got me through the rest of school to give me space from this group that I was hanging out with, these things that I was doing. And so it was like this forced reset of, like, soberness, of I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't partying. I wasn't numbing anything. I was just home. But I like needed it so much. I needed that like calm. I needed to just like be with myself and feel what it feels like to have clarity. And so that was huge for me, and I stopped kind of doing so many drugs. Now I still was drinking, I still smoked pot, I still had things happen after that happened. But it
Yeah.
was a pause and a reset that helped me take some small steps. And then, later on in life, I gave myself other pauses and resets, or I made other choices to just stop doing drugs. And sometimes those choices aren't like made for yourself. Sometimes you make them for somebody else, but then you realize that they're good for you.
Yeah.
Like I remember entering a relationship and the guy didn't do drugs. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stop smoking pot because I like this guy. And then it turned into this thing of like, actually, that's like really good for me to stop smoking pot. And I needed to do that. Some people can handle smoking pot and be fine, but this was not that. I was not that person. I was like anything to numb anything. And so it's like sometimes I made choices for other people, but then it ended up proving to be healthy for me. And it like gave me clarity to do some more self work and healing. And so moments like that in my life where I was able to kind of make small choices for myself, make those choices to be healthier in a certain way, and then that opened a door for me to like heal even more and learn more about myself.
Do you think that when you making choices, not for other people's benefits, but to be in like say a relationship or whatever, it was because you didn't at that time didn't value yourself. You actually valued somebody else more than yourself. Yeah.
100%. Well, because yeah, I had such little self-worth.
Yeah.
That, yes, that choice to stop smoking was beneficial for me, but it wasn't because I cared about me. It was because I liked this guy, and the relationships I were in, like I just what the fact that this person showed interest in me, it was clearly as good as it would get in my mind. And so even when that relationship ended up not being a healthy one, and causing more harm, I was so attached to it, I couldn't let it go
Yeah.
because who
Yeah.
else was gonna love me?
Exactly. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I got stuck in that relationship and then and then I got my son and that's when I kind of made that big shift. But that's what happens, right? Like we're so accepting of, poor treatment or
Yeah.
just it is what it is because this is what I'm
Familiarity.
deserving of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
we
And
get so
this is
stuck.
why you get people that go from one bad relationship to another, and it's almost
Mhm.
like a carbon copy of the previous ones
Yeah.
because they go with what they know, and
Mhm.
it's so normalized that it don't else. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Even if it's a terrible relationship, people go back to the same terrible relationship over and over,
Yeah.
same outcome. Yeah. When was the moment you started liking yourself again?
I think after I ended that relationship and I became a single mom is when I really started, valuing me
Yeah,
and what I had to offer the world. And again, it did take like it was technically me having my son and wanting to do it for him, but
yeah,
then realizing I needed to do it for myself and I also like deserved that. I
yeah,
deserved to do it for myself. And so it was kind of like this multifaceted thing. But yeah, I think that's when I started really viewing myself as worthy and viewing myself as like I have things to offer this world and I'm going to like let that shine. I'm going to find my spark again and I'm going to totally take my power back here and make
yeah.
choices for myself. And then that just kept progressing as I went and it just became stronger and stronger each day.
How did you feel when you see a copy of your book for the first time?
Oh my gosh, it was the most amazing thing. Like this road has just been so long and just hard and I'm so proud of where I've come. I'm proud of who I am today. I'm proud of who I am for the world today and the fact that I did it and I wrote it and even if I only sell, 10 copies, like okay, those are
Yeah.
10 people who it will help and it
It
was so surreal.
Yeah, I mean, you say the 10 copies, right? I mean, people know you as a speaker now, you're doing the podcast there. So there's a lot of momentum behind your book. But it's the same old story. That one person
Mm,
that buys that book, it might save their life. You just don't know. You may
yeah.
never know about that. But their story could be so similar to yours, or they can relate to it and they seen what you've done to get through. I mean, a lot of people if they've been through what you've been through, it's happened once, not multiple times, and to have the strength to overcome that and everything else attached to it, where
Mhm.
people want to blame you for that, yeah, that takes a lot of strength. So I think a lot of people are going to really, well, as you know, are inspired by your story there as well.
Yeah. I hope so because I mean it is so common, so many people go through and like trauma in general and like pain in general and I do think that this book is also like even if you don't have experience with sexual abuse. I've had people read it who just have their own trauma and they're like
Yeah.
these keys are just so relatable to like trauma in general and they were able to relate it to their own journey with that. And so I just that's the goal is for people to read it, feel hope and inspired and do some actual like real healing.
How did you get to the keys? How did you get to that part of it?
Yeah, so that kind of it just like organically came out. I was
Yeah.
writing and writing and at first I was just going to write about my story, but then I wanted it to be more practical. I wanted it to be a tool. I wanted people to not only just read it and be like, "Wow, I relate to her story." I wanted people to be able to read it and answer that question, but how? Like how do we get there? How do we do that part? And so I like wrote the whole book and then I went through it again and I started pulling out the keys that I naturally wrote about and like naming them. And I was like, "Ah, like here's this whole and so like it wasn't this like idea that I had when I started it. It just kind of came out as I was writing it and I was
Yeah.
able to name these keys. And these keys, they're real keys for real people. They're sustainable, they're attainable, they're things that anyone can do, right? It's not like this like it's a very easy read. It's a short book. It's not like 500 pages. It's not
Yeah.
like you need a master's in psychology to understand what I'm talking
It's
about,
not an
right? Like
academic. It's
right,
not
right,
dry.
because exactly, like I want it to be for anyone who picks it up. Anyone who picks it up
Yeah.
can read it and get something from it and understand how to do it. And so, yeah, they just kind of I was able to name them as I was writing and then it came to be like these keys that I just want to share with everyone.
I can imagine when you started discovering these keys, you just had so much momentum and nothing
Mhm.
was going to stop you. You just
Oh,
kept
it
on
was like
going.
I was on fire. I just was like, "Oh,
Exactly.
so excited." And so I talk about my dad a lot. He's just
You
such a
sound,
great guy, and he actually writes I have him and my sister share some of their perspectives throughout
yeah,
because I think it's important because when you're in it, right? Like you don't see those perspectives of like the
yeah,
people around you.
yeah.
And so it makes it so that if you're a support person, you can also read this book and really connect. because it shares their perspectives of like how they were feeling, what were they going through during this time, and the perspective of my dad, who was one of my caregivers, And so, and he has a section that he writes from dad to dads and other caregivers of just like how he got through it. And so it's just really, I just think it's really special. And so, like, I'd be on the phone with him, like, he's like, "You're on fire right now. I can tell." And I'm like, I need to like, and then I had to slow myself down because I'm like, I want to publish it today. And it's like nowhere
Yeah.
close to being ready. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think when you're at that stage, you've got that like literally on fire. You've got that momentum going. Look how
Mhm.
far you would come from going back to like your worst point.
Oh, I know.
It's different person.
100%. Sometimes it's like I don't even, because I don't carry my pain and my trauma on my shoulders every day. Like
Hmm.
it's just not, it doesn't define me.
No,
I get to I put it away, and when
that's
I wanna talk
important.
about it, yeah, when I wanna talk about it, I take it out and I talk about it, and I feel what I need to feel, and then I put it
Yeah,
back. And
yeah,
so, like, sometimes I'll think about it and be like, "Did that even does that really happen?" Because I don't
yeah,
feel it
yeah.
every day. I don't
That's
feel the
great.
pain,
That's a lot of
and that's,
work.
yeah, it is a lot of work, and that's what I want for people. I want people to be able to navigate through life without carrying that heaviness
Yeah.
every day. It is
Uh,
so exhausting.
It is exhausting. I'm diagnosed with CPTSD, and
Oh,
it's exhausting. And you have days where you don't think about it too much, but sometimes there's always been like a cloud, and then there
mm,
you have dark days where if it's exhausting, you wake up, you're like, I've got 10 clients today, or whatever it might be. I don't even know I'm going to get through the day, and you have to find that energy. So if you can get to kind of where you're at, it just makes everything
mm.
so much easier to manage and deal with.
Yeah, 100%. And it also has made me, I think, better equipped to
Yeah,
handle life and
yeah.
the rest of it, because it's not like I had these experiences and life has been an easy,
No.
like life's still life and over here,
Of course it is. It carries on,
yeah.
and yeah,
Yes, and so I have, like, my kids and their struggles, like, I
yeah,
feel stronger to help guide them through their struggles because I've overcome my own.
yes,
And that's who I wanna be for people. I wanna be someone who can walk in and just give you this hope that you can overcome the darkest times. That's my mission, so
yeah. It's definitely one you're doing well because your story is awful story to hear at the start, but it's also inspiring there as well. And the courage that you've shown to overcome so much and to then go on to excel at what you're doing and love what you're doing and be an advocate there as well and get your book as well. And it's got steps to help people is amazing there. And you got such a positive attitude as well to everything.
yeah, yeah, thank you, I appreciate that.
No,
That's
no
my goal.
problem. You're doing a great job. What is the future looking like for you? I can imagine there's a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm doing the speaking. That's fairly new, so I'm really excited to see where that takes me. Getting myself out there nationwide to just touch lives. One day, I'm hoping to write another book about my experiences as a mother of someone with mental illness, and that perspective. And so that's a goal of mine. And yeah, so I'm just kind of gonna see where that journey takes me in both areas, so
I'm sure it'll be a good one because it's certainly been a great one for a long time for you now, and it seems to be getting better and better. Amy, it's been brilliant having you on. I've loved hearing your story. Great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.